It was the beginning of January in 2018, back when I was in 6th grade. Just an ordinary kid navigating through school with decent grades, mostly A's, and a sprinkling of B's. I had a small group of friends, with my best buddy being Colin, who lived about 30 minutes away from me. Our hangouts were always centered around the woods near his place, a vast expanse of about 3 acres filled with trees, a forest, and creeks. A serene pond nestled within the landscape became our favorite spot for summer fishing. However, at the edge of his property loomed an abandoned house, a relic frozen in time since the 1960s, or so Colin informed me. The tale went that, from the 1970s, teenagers had been hosting rowdy parties there, leaving the house in a state of disrepair. Even Colin's older sister Anna, then 26, used to attend those parties before Colin was born. Yet, she vehemently warned us to stay away, especially from the basement. Ignorant to the gravity of her warning, we assumed it was just about substances or alcohol. One weekend, I took the bus to Colin's house, and our plan for the next morning was to explore the old house. We rode a gator, similar to a farm ATV, to the end of a trail that turned into a paved road for a short stretch. Something caught my eye in a snowy part of the forest. Remnants of an old house foundation with only parts of the stairs left. It was eerie yet intriguing, imagining a house's stairs standing alone in the middle of a forest now reclaimed by nature. The stairs fascinated me, but Colin urged us to keep moving. We reached the house, and the trees opened up to a small yard. Disembarking from the gator, Colin retrieved a rifle from the back, teasing me with a "ladies first." Despite his attempt at humor, a growing sense of unease gnawed at me. As we entered the house, a loud crash echoed from the basement, making my stomach churn. Yet we pressed on, undeterred or perhaps foolishly courageous. Colin held the rifle as we opted to inspect the upstairs first, given our concerns about the basement. The aftermath of countless parties left the interior in disarray. Unbeknownst to us, those wild gatherings mysteriously ceased one night in 2002. The house harbored secrets, and despite my fear, I relished the opportunity to explore. After examining the upstairs and main floor with disappointing results, we made our way toward the back door. There, we stumbled upon gruesome evidence, fresh deer parts strewn about. Following the trail, it pointed ominously to the basement door. Confronted with darkness, we exchanged glances, hesitating. Down there seemed like a terrible idea, but Colin hushed me and pointed towards the basement. 2 large yellow eyes stared back at us. Terrified, we fled, screaming for our lives. Racing towards the door we had entered, we discovered it was stuck. Panicking, I desperately tried to fix it, while the menacing presence behind us took a step closer. Colin, displaying a sudden burst of courage, shot a hole through the door. Looking back, I realized that might have been why it got stuck in the first place. We pushed harder, and the door finally creaked open, allowing us to escape the ominous basement. Sprinting to the gator, Colin accelerated, narrowly avoiding a crash. As we sped away, a haunting scream echoed from the house. We didn't stop, and we didn't look back until we reached Colin's place. There, we called the police, reporting a dangerous homeless person in the abandoned house. The police arrived, discovering deer parts in the basement and something more disturbing, the remains of a missing child who had died at around 10 or 11 years old. The story doesn't end there. Recently, Colin messaged me sounding terrified. He recounted a chilling incident involving his sister, Anna, who attended a party at the same abandoned house. Everyone was drunk except for Anna and her friend. Her friend ventured into the basement and went missing. It wasn't until New Year's Eve of '99 that Anna discovered his lifeless body at a police-attended party. The horror of the revelation shook me, realizing that we might have unwittingly placed ourselves in a similar perilous situation. If you liked this video, subscribe to the channel to stay tuned. The neighborhood I grew up in wasn't the most desirable. Everyone residing there was compelled by financial constraints rather than a desire to live there. The majority of houses were tiny and antiquated, and businesses in the town struggled to remain operational for more than a fleeting year or two. During my youth, it was customary for us to explore abandoned houses and businesses, a practice seemingly tolerated by the authorities despite its prevalence. In my early years, my elementary school shuttered its doors, and the vacant building was left untouched. As I got older, the allure of exploring these dilapidated places drew me in, especially the abandoned school. One Saturday night, my friend Ryan and I, lacking cars, embarked on a 4-mile trek from his house to reach the eerie building. Even before its abandonment, the school had an unsettling vibe. Situated on the outskirts of town, shrouded by woods, encased in a chain-link fence, it hardly seemed fitting for an elementary school. Scaling the fence, we found numerous broken windows, providing easy access. I entered first, followed closely by Ryan, and as we stood there, the echoes of the building's creaks filled the air. Navigating the hallways, we ventured into various rooms, our senses heightened by the strange juxtaposition of returning to the school after so many years, only to witness its deteriorated state. After passing several unremarkable rooms, we encountered a hallway obstructed by scattered chairs. Pushing through, we reached a room on the left, where clothes hung from the ceiling. As I puzzled over this peculiar sight, I noticed Ryan's silence and turned to find a figure in the far corner of the room, a disheveled man with minimal clothing, holding something ominous in his hand. Panic set in, and Ryan swiftly pulled me back into the hallway. Suddenly, a metallic object hurtled towards the door with a bone-chilling scream following suit. Fear propelled us down the hallway, and we escaped through the nearest open window, running until breathless. Reflecting on the experience, we deduced that the man likely brandished a knife, the very weapon he had attempted to throw at us. Given his unstable state, it became evident that our hasty departure may have spared us from a potentially perilous encounter, reinforcing the realization that staying longer or overlooking his presence could have had dire consequences. Back in my adolescent years, between 14 and 16, my friends and I were always on the lookout for places to hang out other than our homes. We would often frequent fast food joints or find spots in the woods near the park. We were at that age where we craved independence, free from constant supervision. However, our quest for late-night hangouts during the weekends faced a hurdle as most stores and dining areas closed early. During one winter break, my friend JT suggested exploring his parents' old farmhouse, claiming it could be a cool and secluded spot. He had mentioned it before, but it never piqued our interest until that night. JT drove me and another friend, Paul, to what seemed like the middle of nowhere. We arrived at a wooden fence, closed off with a chain marking private property. Lacking the key, we hopped over and ventured into the unknown. Walking along a rough gravel path, JT explained that the farmhouse belonged to his grandparents, but was passed down to his parents, who left it untouched for almost a decade. No maintenance had been done in over 10 years. As we approached, the outline of the house in the dark revealed its dilapidated state, a sagging roof, hanging siding panels. Upon reaching the front, we found the door covered with a large sheet of wood. So we circled around to the back, where the door was missing. Turning on our phone flashlights, we entered. Surprisingly, the place wasn't as trashed as expected. Dusty, yes, but most furniture seemed undisturbed. After a brief exploration, I entered a hallway on the left and encountered someone walking past the end. Panicking, I called out to JT, but it wasn't him. The tall, thin figure I saw was unfamiliar. I backtracked, only to find JT and Paul frozen in the middle of the room, lights pointing toward a man standing at the edge of the light. We sprinted to the back door, running out into the open field. Although we weren't certain if the man chased us, JT believed he heard footsteps behind him. We ran straight back to the car, driving off without taking any more risks. The man was likely a squatter defending what he called home. JT planned to inform his parents but hesitated, fearing trouble for trespassing. Whatever happened that night remains the most horrifying experience I've had, and if the man was trying to chase us, we were incredibly lucky to have escaped unharmed. I used to reside in the rural landscapes of Texas during my childhood. My companion John and I were inseparable, spending endless hours playing together. It was the 80s, and reminiscing about those days fills me with immense joy and nostalgia. It truly felt like the golden era of childhood, with crisp, clean air, endless stretches of grass to run on, bike rides, and an unbridled sense of fun. The absence of video games and similar distractions made it, in my opinion, the ideal time to grow up. Our small town was dotted with abandoned houses, providing us with countless opportunities for exploration. Many of these homes belonged to elderly residents without any family to inherit their properties. Additionally, there was a vast expanse of farmland with barns that seemed untouched by human activity. My friend and I, aged between 11 and 13, took it upon ourselves to explore these places for a couple of years. Our daytime adventures were filled with excitement, but we never dared to venture out at night. Our courage had its limits. One day, our curiosity led us to a particularly intriguing house. It had once been an elderly woman's home, and she had passed away inside. The discovery of her lifeless body had occurred a few days later due to the overwhelming stench that had permeated the neighborhood. Despite being around 400 meters away from the house, her neighbors somehow detected the odor, a mystery that baffled us. As we approached the house, we noted its windows were covered and taped up. Undeterred, we saw this as an opportunity for one of our most memorable explorations. The sun was beginning to set as we cautiously approached the gate, contemplating whether to proceed. However, my friend John, sensing unease, suggested we abandon the idea and explore one of our safer regular spots. I, on the other hand, felt an inexplicable pull towards the abandoned house, a sensation I couldn't ignore. Being the de facto leader in our friendship, I convinced John to follow me, despite his reservations. The front door was locked with a padlock, so we decided to circumvent the obstacle by checking the back. Broken windows surrounded the house, contradicting my earlier observation that they were boarded up. With a gentle touch, we pushed open one of the weakly secured boards, revealing the interior. As we navigated through the house, we discovered the remnants of an old and mysterious life. Antique possessions were scattered on shelves, creating an ambiance reminiscent of a home library. However, the musty and damp smell, coupled with the broken window, hinted at someone else's recent presence. Despite John's apprehension, we pressed on quietly, making our way through the house. The realization that every door had been opened except one added an eerie layer to our exploration. Upon opening that final door, a shock coursed through me as I discovered a man lying on a mattress in the corner. Stains covered the walls, and it became clear that this was not a place for innocent exploration. My fight-or-flight response kicked in, and I raced out of the house with John in tow. We opted to exit through the kitchen window, leaving behind a scene that would forever be etched in our memories. Running for our lives, we never spoke a word to our parents about the encounter. The fear of the unknown, whether that man was homeless or posed a threat to us, lingered long after that fateful day.